how to sell a house in New Zealand and also how to select the right agent, or even if you should have an agent. So let's start with, if you weren't to have an agent, how could you actually sell the house yourself? Like, what's the process?
If you weren't to have an agent?
Yeah, starting off strong, mate.
Yeah. Yeah, well, look, I mean, buyers are typically going to the same place. I mean, you look at Trade Me as one of the main portals. As a private seller, you can jump on there, no problem. So you can also get professional photography. If you're good at writing a good script, you can position yourself pretty well on Trade Me. And a buyer doesn't really care who they're buying off. They're more interested in the house itself. So that in itself puts you in a position where you can sell it privately. But are you the best person to do it? Are you going to be able to negotiate the best price? Are you going to be able to run the campaign in the best way possible to get the best buyers and put them in competition with each other, ultimately to get the best price in the best amount of time? Some people go in with the best intentions of, how hard can it be? And then it doesn't work out, and they end up going with an agent anyway, or they pull it and take a pause.
And we'll jump into like how to pick an agent, what to think about. But on the advertising front, because I've seen these drone videos, these photos, Trade Me, Facebook ads. Like, is there any particular channel that's the most successful? Like, or what do you think about when you advertise?
Yeah, it's a pretty busy world out there in terms of, if a buyer's looking, it's pretty noisy and lots to choose from. So you've got a smaller window of time to get their attention. So having the right photography and the right videography is massive. And to go along with that, it's got to be positioned well, the right heading, and then so once they click into it, then you've got a time to grab them. Ultimately, what you're trying to do with any of that advertising is put yourself in touch with a buyer. So the whole purpose of that is not to sell the house; it's to actually get you in touch with a buyer, and then ultimately get them through, and they could be the buyer. But yeah, some people I think go too far with that. They're trying to sell it online. You're not going to sell it online. You just literally want to get, because you can give too much information. You show too many photos, tell too much. Buyer doesn't need to see it anymore. They just see one or two things that doesn't actually work for them. They go, next, and then move on. Like I say, it's pretty busy in that environment of being able to fish through.
Interesting. Yeah, I love advertising. So I'm just curious on the house thing. Because I mean, like, if you know how to get in front of, like, I used to struggle. I used to be good at the sales part, but I couldn't get in front of people. So I was like, I'll just start a marketing company and work it out, and just tell all my clients, I have no idea what I'm doing. Do you want to take a punt? And they're like, yeah, sure. So is Trade Me pretty much the most common channel, or do you ever do like intermediaries? Do you ever do door knock? Do you do cold calls? Do you have a list of like people you call? Like, what's the actual getting people to show up part?
Yeah, so that's one of the portals. We've got pretty good data these days to see, certainly with the online world, of how many people are clicking into it, how many people, from there, what the call through rate is. Obviously, we know how many emails we're getting. So, and you can analyze that data from day to day of how many people are seeing it online, and is that converting into people coming through the property. So that gives us really good insight. Yes, having your own database of buyers is a big thing, because you got buyers on there that are ideally qualified and ready to buy. You know the criteria, you know what they're looking for. There's a study done. They say on average it's 88 days from when a buyer first looks at their first house to when they've bought. So they've got to go through that journey. So if they pick up the phone and come say, I want to see the house, yeah, great. And it's the first phone call they've made, the first house they've seen, sure, we want to get them through and help them out. But chances are they're probably not going to buy it. They need to go through a bit of a journey to see what they like, what they don't like. Maybe miss out on a property or two. If they've missed out on a couple of properties, or they've been looking for a while, where they could be getting closer. So
this is a horrible relation example, but my friend had this theory, is like if you go out, you meet a girl at the club and you go to lots of different venues, it feels like you went on lots of different dates. Do you think it's would it apply like the 80-day limit? Is it like you got to see 10 houses? Like, let's say if I got them to see 20 houses in a day, could I get them to make a decision tomorrow?
Uh, yeah, look, there's not an exact formula, but those buyers that are sick to the teeth of looking at houses and want their weekends back love them, because they just want to buy a house. So they're easy to close because they go, okay, you told me you wanted this, you wanted that. This is your budget. It fits in here. This is your house. Let me help you buy it. So it's a lot easier to close those buyers. You can see them; they've just had a guts full, especially if they've missed out on properties because it's that emotional journey of going, this is the one. They get themselves, in a position where they're going to make an offer or try and buy it. If they miss out on that property, it's quite deflating and they've got to do it again. And there's only so many times they want to do that, and go, what do we need to do to secure this property? And that's where we can help them.
Interesting. I wonder how savage people go with that. There's this whole timeshare thing where it's like you go to this venue and there's 4 people that are moles. So they're in on it, and they talk about how exciting it is, which sways everyone else. I wonder if you could have like a network of real estate agents that will just like decline offers to people just so they're primed on the 88th day. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, so commission only salesmen or whatever. Like, are they all commission only, these real estate agents? Because I know they don't have the best of brand perceptions. And every time I see an ad, they're always like best on, I don't know, bridge number 62. Blah, 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 real estate number 1. You know what I mean? They all got these little fucking. So
yeah, it doesn't have the great reputation. There was a study done in Reader's Digest actually, and of all the most trusted professions, and real estate agents were right down the bottom between car salesmen and sex workers. So yeah, that was how they were perceived. And that the industry's tidied up a little bit, but it's still they're still not the greatest people in any industry, of course. You're gonna some people are not gonna have a great experience. But yeah, we would like to think that we'll do trying to help people ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, it is a frustrating experience. I mean, sales is a good thing if you do it honestly and ethically. So, all right, so you want to pick an agent, and they're in the range of sex worker and whatever else you said. What do you look for when you're deciding on the right agent?
You've got to be careful. I think it's good to go in with your own criteria of what you're looking for in an agent. And when you're interviewing an agent, because ultimately that's what you're doing. It's like a job interview. We're going in there, and what is that criteria that you're going to choose your agent? Because we can tell you anything you want to hear. It's like, price wise is probably the biggest thing. We can get overquote to get the business. Sign here, I can get you this price, and then spend the next 3 months beating you down to get you to a realistic price. But so that's one of the dangers. And there's a saying, biggest liar gets the job. Whoever lies for the highest price. I think people are getting more clued up to that, thankfully. That the highest quoting agent quite often doesn't get the job, but there is a risk of that. And there's also, if I'm sitting in front of you and you want to sell your house, you've got a price in your mind of what you want for your house. And I've done some homework on what I think it's worth. There's quite often a gap, so what you want is often more than market. And that's a natural thing. It's called the endowment effect, actually. It's actually when you own something, you naturally overvalue it. There's a lot of data around, so people can be on the money, but often they're emotionally attached to it, so they overprice it. So, yeah, price is a big part of that. So you want to have an agent that's giving you really good data of this is a realistic range. We're going to try and beat that. We obviously want to get the absolute highest price for the property that's in the market, and that's not exact science either. You can get a registered valuation done. That's not to say that's the valuation. Often we beat those. So it's more about the strategy of how are you going to get the highest price, not what price am I going to tell you. So that's a big part of it. Commission's another thing. People shop around to get the cheapest commission, but as you know, in any industry, you tend to get what you pay for. So if you're going to shop around to find the cheapest agents, your net amount in your pocket at the end of the transaction is likely to be lower, even though your commission's lower. So those two big price things are always on people's minds, and that's going to come into it. But they should do a deeper dive, when I say a seller or potential seller, into okay, what's the track record of this agent? What? Show me your last 10 sales. Can I speak within? Are you happy for me to call them? How did the sale go? What did you quote them? What did you actually get for the property? What was their, the net outcome? And ultimately, they should have a long list of happy clients who are real people, not made up people or made up testimonials. So that track record is key, I reckon, to really know. Okay, show me the proof that I should go with you.
Yeah, it makes sense. Well, on the different commission things, like the different companies have different commission splits. Like, what it actually is the commission for? Like,
yeah, they do. I mean, like anything, commission is negotiable, and often agents will negotiate on commission, and that's something you should always test an agent on. I reckon, just what can you do it at, and test them out on what they're willing to do it at, and their negotiation ability as well of how they can negotiate that commission. What I always do, and is always to put it in writing that it is negotiable. It's like at the moment we can negotiate on commission, but I haven't sold your house yet, so you don't know. I could be doing a great job. I could do a rubbish job. You've got no idea at this point. Let me bring you the buyer and get you the highest price to negotiate, and you let me know at that point whether you want to negotiate the commission. So put in writing that is negotiable, but you're best to do that at the point of sale rather than because you don't know what's going to happen until we're up and running. And it gives the agent the incentive to go out there and get the best result as well.
So you agree? So you have a commission, then just when it's about to sell, you're like, okay, let's negotiate on the commission.
So
is that what you said, or did I listen wrong? Yeah.
Yeah, no, ultimately that's what we're putting in writing that you can. So at the point of sale, if you say, okay, so if you told me you're gonna sell it for X, you've run a campaign, and if it didn't live up to the promises, you say, well, look, I'm happy to go at that offer, but at this commission, we have to negotiate at this level, and you nut it out at that point. So ultimately, that shouldn't happen. You shouldn't be over promising and under delivering. You should actually be delivering a really good campaign. They couldn't be happier. They'll pay the commission, and the net outcome for them is as good or better than they'd hoped. We get paid along the way, and that's the way it should go. But it gives them peace of mind to know that, hey, look, you've got this in your back pocket. If you need to, we can negotiate the commission.
And is it like 100%? Is it 20%? Is it 1%? What are the commissions? I know it's not 100%. That'd be wild, but
so it's tiered. But if you're going to look at New Zealand average commissions on a flat rate, it'd be probably just under 3%, I think, across the board. You got multi-million-dollar properties, you've got lower end properties, so it's tiered. But on a flat rate, call it 3%.
Yeah. Okay. So it's. I guess if you have a more expensive house, then you can get a lower commission.
Yeah, that's right. You can do a lower rate because ultimately the commission's going to be still.
I'll just sell $10 million homes all day of the week. Now it'd be hard. You got to find buyers and all that stuff. But okay, so now you want to decide, how do you even find agents? Do you just ask your mates?
Yeah, well, if somebody's had a good experience with an agent, you can secret shop them. You can turn up to open homes in your area and sort of go have a look and see what they're doing. You can do online searches. There's places like Rate My Agents, which have got agents that are reviewed. So often it is a referral business where people go, hey, look, you should have a chat with my agent. He did a great job, or avoid this agent at all costs, or so there's a way of it is often people that are referred, but it can be who's active in that area, who's got a lot of the market share in the area. So naturally people assume that they're going to have the best buyer database, they're going to have the best local knowledge, and stay with that local agent. So that you can find them. I mean, the online world is a big part of that, but recommendations, referrals is a big part of it.
And then method of sale. So how are you actually going to sell your house and whatever that is? I don't own a property or anything.
Yeah, well, that's a big part of it too, and it can vary. Obviously, I'm in Auckland, and Auckland's got quite a auctions are a big method of sale here. If you would go down to Wellington, they're really strong in the tender worlds or deadline sales. So that can be an area thing. You can put a price on it. You can do it by negotiation. So basically, they fall into two categories. You've got no price marketing. So the campaign is run without a price. Then the market set the price, and our job, of course, is to maximise that. Or you can price it, and that's not as common, certainly not in Auckland, because it's, where do you price it? You don't want to be underpricing it, of course. There's a danger of overpricing it. So the pricing part of it will often come further in the campaign when you're a little bit more sure of where it sits in the market. That's often where you see a price come in. But it's an important one, the method of sale, to get it right. What's going to be the best method for your property? What's the strategy this agent's going to use to find the best buyers, put them in competition with each other to ultimately get you the highest price in the shortest amount of time? Because it is if the average days in Auckland are closer to 50, but if you can get it under that, your chance of getting a higher price tend to be better. An auction campaign or a tender campaign tend to be 21 days, 3 weekends of open homes, and then you want to be sold.
So let's maybe go through each individual method of sale, what it is, the pros and cons, and when you would use it.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll just choose one randomly to start with.
Yeah.
So tender or deadline, which are very similar things. So you're running essentially 3 weekends of open homes, and then you want all offers in that date. If you're using that method of sale, the way it's often pitched to you is that ideally you're putting buyers in competition with each other, but the confidential nature of those offers are going to force you to put the highest price at the risk of missing out. So to use round figures, if I've got $1 million to spend, I think the house is worth $1 million, and I'll pay that. That'll be my offer. If you've got a budget of up to 1.1, and you're the competing buyer, you might go all the way to 1.1, even though $1.10 million might have bought the house, because the other buyer could only go to $1 million or only prepared to go to $1 million. But you might go all the way to 1.1 because you don't know what those other people are willing to pay. So you're going to max out your budget. You're going to push the boat out essentially to own the property. So that's the way it's pitched to you. The confidential nature of it will force you to get the highest price. The agent should still be negotiating on that, because that 1.1 buyer might have come in and said, will $1.10 million buy it? And you say, well, what if the other buyer paid 50 more than that and you miss out? How would you feel? And you go, well, yeah, no, I wouldn't want to miss out for that. Okay, so you'd pay that. What if they pay $1.70 million? I said, look, I can't tell you what the other buyers, are prepared to pay or going to pay. But what if you found out it sold for $1.75 million and you missed out? And they go, I wouldn't want that. Okay, so you'd pay that. What if it went for 1.8? So you essentially put them into their own auction until they get to the point they can have it. You sure? Because if they paid they paid $1.90 million, for example, and you did miss out, can they have it? Oh, okay, I guess I'd pay that. So you just keep going until they go, they pay $1 more than that, they can have the thing. Oh, that's us, we're done. So it's a way of flushing out their highest price. And in that scenario, there is quite often the point where the highest bid is quite a bit above the underbidder. I bought it tender, and naturally, when you're the successful buyer, you're like, did I pay too much? It's like you ask them, well, what was the underbidder? Can't tell you. It's like, oh, okay, well, I bought the house.
Was that just a sales tactic real estate agents made up, or what is it? So basically, you both write in a secret note, and you're like, here's my bid. But the real estate agent can be like, oh, yeah, but are you sure that's enough? Whisper. Is that kind of what it is?
Well, it's a fair process because everyone's going in blind to each other. They're all confidential to each other, and you're just giving us your best offer. you may or may not be successful, but give us your best offer. And so it is a fair process.
What
And
happens if it
that
fails? Like, they put it in, and then do you have to accept the offers or anything like that, or you can just say no?
you can say no. Yeah, so sometimes that happens. You get a multi-offer situation, or and you've got all these offers to open up in front of the seller. It's like Christmas, and you put them all in front of them, and none of them was good enough. Or you might say, well, that's our preferred one, but you still need to negotiate with them. So you enter negotiation with one party. You can't negotiate with all parties at that point, but you negotiate with the strongest offer at that point. So
Why can't?
yeah.
So they're like rules and stuff that you can't do stuff. What can't you do?
There's rules under what we call a multi-offer where you essentially can't negotiate with all parties. You can't play one off against the other. You can't be doing counter offers with all these different. Oh, these guys paid that, match this. No, you choose your best offer, and you negotiate directly with that seller, that buyer rather. And if you get a successful outcome, great, job done. If not, you move on, and then you can go back to one of the others. But
So the
can't be.
game is to like milk the fuck out of it before they write it down, and then once they've written it down, then you're off.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's ultimately that's what it is. I mean, I've had it before in that scenario, in multi-offer scenarios where you've gone through that process of, is this your best price? And sure it is. And they miss out, and you make that phone call and you say, hey, look, thanks for your interest. Unfortunately, somebody else came with a better offer, and they've gone with that. Oh, we'll pay more. Well, can we add another 10 on that? I was like, no, it's gone. Sorry. Oh, well, what about another 15? So that's where you go, did I do my job right? Because where was that money before? So that's why we've really got to test them to say, if you miss out, are you comfortable at this point? Because they might think you're playing games. No, mate, this is it. This is your shot. You might miss out.
So what was it called, or does it have other names for it? What was the?
So that's a multi-offer. Is where that can be in any method of sale, and it's you basically got a multi-offer in the confidential offers. What I mentioned in Wellington, where they use as a tender or a deadline sale, without going into too much into it, they're very similar things where you run a 3-week campaign, all offers are in on this date, goes into an envelope, it's confidential to all others, and it's opened up in front of the seller. Just different terms. Yeah.
So same sort of concept, but is there some sort of curlies, like it's slightly different, like revolving credit versus like what was the other thing called? Offset loans.
Offset.
Yeah, same, but slightly different.
Yeah, I mean, deadline sale is on a standard sale and purchase agreement, and you can put in your own terms, your own, it can be conditional, unconditional. Tender is more on a tender document where it's the vendor set the terms, and your offer has to stay on the table after you submitted it. So it's a little bit more rigid, the tender process, and that's possibly why more people are using the deadline. It has a little bit more fluidity. You can open it up into conditional buyers. Buyers can withdraw their offer at any point. But ultimately, it's still you're still trying to run a 3-week campaign and have confidential offers.
Cool. And then the other method of sales, like you said, conditional, unconditional. I don't know what that means. So, but you go wherever you want to go. What's the method of sale?
Yeah. So a method of sale that's unconditional. So that means at that point there's no turning back. Deposit is due. You bought the house. A conditional sale is we might say, I'll buy this house subject to my bank approving it, me getting a builder through, and checking the council LIM report. That's a conditional offer. So you've secured the property, but you've still got to go through your checks. As a seller, you've got to get, you want to get to the point of unconditional. The sooner the better. And that leads us into perhaps the other method of sale, which is auction, which is an unconditional sale. Have you been to an auction, Ryan?
I've watched a YouTube video.
Yeah. So that's where, it's in a public environment where you're seeing and hearing other people's offers, and they're all bidding unconditionally. So when the hammer goes down, assuming it does, then you bought the house. So you're an unconditional buyer, your deposit's due, so you've done all your checks at the front end. So if you can get that done in that 21-day campaign, that's a good place to be as a seller. to know that you're unconditional and done, and you can move on. So that is one of the big positives of an auction, is that it's an unconditional sale. There's no conditional period where you're sitting around waiting for them to do their checks with the potential of it falling over and having to start again. It's done. So the other real positives of the auction process is you're putting buyers in competition with each other. So you're always looking for emotional buyers. You want buyers that are emotionally invested to buy the property. If you put them in an emotional environment like an auction space, whether that's an auction room or an on-site auction, you've got emotional buyers in an emotional environment in competition with each other. That's where you see those, they don't all go nuts, but that's where you see those ones where they just keep pushing each other and nobody wants to miss out. So they keep going to their max. So that's the auction process. Yeah. So the time frame it's good. The unconditional nature of it's good. The competitive nature of it can be really good, but they don't all sell. That's the other thing.
Do you ever try and plan a bit of competition? Like you have a sport there that they can play, like table tennis, to get it fired up, or you never guess what she said about your outfit. She thinks you look crap, or you're not going to take that, are you? Like, how do you create an environment of frenzy?
Yeah, well, look, at the auction room itself can be that environment where that's all happening, so that can create that. But at the end of the day, the competition's there or it's not. You've either got multiple bidders, or you've got one bidder, or you've got none. It's pretty simple as that. You can't make up bidders. They're not going to. They're only going to be there if they're there to buy the house. So in the perfect scenario, you've got competition, but you only need one bidder. You can still have a really successful auction because they've done their homework. They've done all their due diligence. They're an unconditional buyer to buy the house on the day. If they're the only buyer, you can negotiate with them, whether you sell it on the floor, or they call it pull it off the floor, where you actually just the auction itself didn't actually pull out the outcome. You negotiate off the floor in a room, put a deal together, and it's done. Then the hammer goes down. So you can still get a really good auction with one buyer.
God, it'd be like having a birthday party and only one person came. Like, can you imagine how awkward? Have you had that? Were you just sitting there
as long as that person was a good person,
it doesn't matter.
Have a good birthday party.
So, yeah, true.
Yeah.
Well said. So do you have to accept the offer that people make, or is it just unconditional for the seller to benefit from?
So in an auction scenario, you've got what we call a reserve. So that's the legal amount and that's set prior to the auction. So they say, again, to use that $1 million figure I used before, if they're going to say, yep, $1 million is my minimum. So legally, the auctioneer can, if the bidding gets to $1 million, they can legally sell the property. The strategy involved of how to get out the best price at that point, but legally, it has to hit reserve before it can be sold. If the bidding gets below, it gets up to a level and it's still below reserve, the vendor or the seller at that point has the option of changing their reserve to get a result, or not.
If they get past the reserve, do you have to accept the offer or you don't?
If they,
does the seller have to accept it or no?
We always still ask for their instructions. So we say to them, we're past reserve, just checking, we're selling? Yep. They give us a nod or thumbs up, and then we sell it. So we still check in with them, even though legally we can sell it once we hit reserve.
So you can, you're in cahoots with the auctioneer. As soon as it gets over it, you can just ignore what the buyer says and be like, we're selling it, you can get stuff. Not that you would, but
we can't sell it without the buyers getting a fair chance. It's selling. There's a term where they say it's on the market. So you can be bidding at this point and again, using that $1 million. So we're bidding 800, 850, 900, and it stops there. The highest bid's 900. It's not on the market. So it hasn't met reserve. So even though you're the highest bidder, you haven't bought the house. If it gets past that $1 million and the vendor's happy for it to be on the market, that means any bid from now, wherever it stops, that's where it's sold.
So the vendor does have to be happy with it, like because I don't know why I've got this preconceived notion. Like we set reserve at $1 million, it has to be sold at $1,000,001 now because we set the reserve. Is that not true? Like you don't have to sell it.
No, don't have to. No, we
Okay, good.
still take instructions. Yeah.
Oh, so it's good.
It's all about strategy of how do we get the best price.
And
How
the
do we get the
auction,
best outcome?
do you have to pay the person going, blah, 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 blah? Do you have to give them money to be there or pay per
You have to
hour?
pay that. You have to pay that dude or dudess. Yeah, you do. Yeah.
What, like $1,000 or what? A commission?
Just shy of that. Yeah, you should be just under that.
If they are good, that'd be commission, wouldn't they? Or how do you pick a good auctioneer? That's a good question.
Yes. So the auctioneers. I mean, again, what's the track record? What's their results? And there's different styles with the auctioneers. There's all sorts of competitions of auctioneers, and how they run things. So it's typically what's their style, what's their track record. I mean, each agency. I mean, that's a part of the agent selection. Actually, is who's your auctioneer? What's their track record? What's their there's a thing in the industry which is the clearance rates. Clearance rates is how many go and how many sell. So what's his clearance rate and how many of them are selling? The auctioneer can do what he can do with. It's our job to get the buyers to the auction. The auctioneer is just calling the auction. If they've got no buyers, it doesn't matter how good they are, they can't sell it.
So what's their relationship with the estate, like real estate agent company? So they rely on you to have a good reputation, because if no one's there, it doesn't matter how good you are, and then you rely on them to make the deals.
Yeah, so there's normally in-house auctioneer who's got a good relationship with the agents, and they work really well together to with the right strategy to get the best result. So each agency will have its own auctioneers.
And you have to use those ones, or can you go a bit rogue and be like,
you don't have to, but you'd be best to, because they're part of our team essentially.
do you start analyzing like the best time at closing, like 2 p.m., like after they're not good Saturday mornings because they get on the piss on Fridays? Like, have you got like?
Yeah, there are some that do the mornings midweek, and then people got to get out of work or they've got a bit on the phone. We've sort of found what we think is a sweet spot to do it in that after work hours on a Thursday week, where we can people can get there, get out of work, got a better chance of getting in there. Ideally, you want them there. A lot of people do the phone bidding, certainly if they're overseas, so. Yeah, and so some will do an on-site auction. So there's different times and there's different theories around the whole thing. At the end of the day, if a buyer wants to buy it, surely they're gonna get there somehow.
Yeah. So what are all the channels that people buy from? So obviously you get the Trade Me advertising, but like you have phone calls, you have Zoom meetings over COVID or whatever.
We don't do that. So you're meeting a lot of these buyers at the open homes, and how do they get to the open homes? They're normally seeing it through one of the portals. So that could be Travy, One Roof, Real Estate, Ho Garden. Those portals are typically where they see the property, and then they check the advertised time. They turn up. If that doesn't work for them, they can still make private appointments as well. They might want to see it midweek. They might not want to see it on the weekend. So it's not just open homes; it's private appointments as well. So they're typically going to see it on one of the portals, one of the internet.
Interesting. Portals. Is there another method of sale, or we got them all?
So price by negotiation is quite a common one. So that falls into the no price marketing. So they don't have to wait 21 days. They might see it on week 1. They don't have to wait another couple of weeks potentially to buy the house. They can put an offer in on the spot. So it does give them that flexibility. Naturally, the question on the buyer's mind is, okay, it's price and negotiation. What do they want for the property? So they need some sort of guidance to bring at that point. And that's typically where you enter negotiation. So price by negotiation is they come and see the house, trying to take price out of the equation to get them there, like the house. Now they can put an offer in, and you just enter a negotiation. Yeah.
Do you track different types of people for different types of offer? Not in terms of like demographic or anything, but like the emotional interest, the psychographics, and then is there better suburbs to do certain things,
Yeah, I don't think it's more of a suburb thing. I mean, yes, you get to know buyers and their buyer journey. They get to know themselves too. I mean, they might start looking in, one suburb, and then they realise actually we can actually get more for our money in another suburb, or actually we don't need that school zone after all. So they'll go on the journey. So their criteria will probably narrow over time as they get closer to their point of offer. So if you're along with the buyer on that journey, that's quite a good process to get to know them and what they're looking for, and ultimately to, at some point you want to close them for their own good as well. Closing's good for everyone.
Yeah, it was a frustrating experience. What goes into the decisions of buying a house? Like, do you see a common thread? Do people stay to a certain area and they've sold on it, or they look for location, or for like what's the
Location's going to be a big part of it. And saying that, people have a budget, and they're often like, yeah, I'll buy this side of the bridge, that side of the bridge. They're quite varied. It might be more down to the house. They want a standalone. They don't want an apartment or a townhouse. And ideally they want freehold, or they're open to a cross lease property. So that's the type of title that it is. So you've got the more the standalone homes, more the townhouses and the apartments. So that those style of homes. Some people want a new build. Some people want a brand new. Some people want a do up. Some people want something at a price point that's lower, and they want to go in there and strap on the overalls and start painting and make it their own, and add value along the way. So, and other people don't have time for that. They just want brand new, boom, move in, it's done. So it depends on what they typically look at. What does my budget buy me? If I've got a budget of X, what's it going to buy me? I can get a brand new over here, or I can get something there with a bit more land, but it's do up. And it depends on their lifestyle and ultimately what their goals are. How long do they plan to be there? Is it a 10-year plan, or they just want to be here a couple of years, flick it on, and then go to the next one? So then they might want to look at, okay, well, actually, what's going to hold its value better, or have better capital gains? Where can I add the value?
and what are the different types of ownerships you're talking about, cross lease and all that stuff? And
Yeah. So this you've got the freehold, which is where you've got your slice of land, which is call it 675 square meters of freehold land, which is not shared, and that's and then you've got your one dwelling or multiple dwellings on that section. So that's in a fee simple or freehold scenario. Cross lease is typically where you've got you can still have a standalone home, or it might be a unit, but you've got a share of the land. You'll still likely have boundaries of where your boundary is, but you've got a share of the land, and there's rules around that share. Without going into too much detail, that can be a little bit more curly, and it's probably not as preferred, and that's why the value tends to be a bit less than freehold. Then you've got the unit title, which is the body corp scenarios. So any apartment building is going to be that, some of the townhouse complexes. So there's pros and cons with that. It can be a bit of a dirty word for people, two-word body corp, because they've heard nightmare stories of these committees and the body corps and the fees going up, and they can be a little bit nightmarish. So if you're buying into one of those body corp scenarios under a unit title, you want to do your homework on the body corp, on what's there, how much is in the funds, how much do you have to pay annually. The positives are it'll include your insurance typically and your maintenance. So a well-run body corp can be really good. There can be pitfalls. Like I say, a lot of people don't like them. For that reason, I like not buying them. It's like a criteria, not buying into body corp.
And was cross lease the share lease thing, or what's cross lease?
Yeah, so that's that scenario is it's good in the sense that you can still get into a good property and at a price point, and you can still put those onto a freehold. You can still get them onto a separate title, essentially, which is freehold. But they're a good way of getting into a property and at a price point which is typically a bit less. The legalities of it is a bit more complex. But you're basically getting a share of what they call an undivided share of the land. So you might have a half share of 800, which you'd think, okay, well, I've got exactly 400. It might not be exactly 400. It's how the flats plan is drawn, where the boundaries are. You might have a shared driveway. They've got 3 something. You've got a touch more. But you should still have. Not all of them do have what we call exclusive use. So that's your boundary and that's mine. Some of them do have it's all common area, which is a little bit more. It's not as preferred because it's all essentially shared land. But you should still have typically exclusive use land of yours and theirs, and then you've got a common area, which is the shared land.
Huh. Well, it'd be interesting. What makes that agreement more valuable? Like, what should you look for if you're going to get a cross lease? Like, you want to have minimal common land and you want to have some exclusivity, or what's sort of the
first thing they'll check is to make sure that what they call the flats plan, so that's basically the footprint diagram, is correct, to make sure that the building is as it should be, and so that's otherwise, if it's defective flats plan, if it's not correct, you have to get that tidied up. Otherwise, it can be a bit of a minefield of issues, and banks don't like it, etc. But what should you look for? You basically just make sure that it's kosher, and your legal representative, your lawyer, will check that. I've always seen the really good thing of cross leases is that ability to actually take it off the cross lease, because they say that there was a study done that said there was an uplift in value that averaged between 7 and 12% from changing the title. The cost of changing the title can be minimal. I hear it's around 30 to 40 grand all up by the time you've actually changed your title. You might be adding 100, 150, $200,000 worth of value for a small investment of changing the title. You've still got to get all your cross lease neighbours to agree to that and share the cost. So there's a bit of work to be done there, but that's actually something that can be a real good add value at a minimal cost.
And it
just makes it more saleable.
It makes it. And is there any coolies in freehold or things you should know about, or is that usually just what people go for?
Oh, there's coolies in everything that you've got to be careful of, and that's where your lawyer often comes in. So is it in a flood zone? Is it what's it zoned for? Where the services? There's all these sort of things to keep an eye out for. Especially in Auckland, on the back of the Auckland floods, that's one of the first questions we get asked in every property is, how did this go in the floods? And so anything in a flood zone is more challenging immediately, because it's might be a 100-year floodplain, but we've just had a 100-year flood, haven't we? Is it still insurable? How did it go? Yeah.
Interesting. And what would be your dream team that you construct when you're selling or buying a house? Like, who do you need to have? You keep saying a lawyer. What kind of lawyer are they, etc.?
Yeah, so conveyancing. So a lawyer that specialises in conveyancing, so that they're a property lawyer essentially. So they're going to do your a lot of your checks for you. I mean, if you're comfortable doing them, you might keep your legal costs down to do a lot of them and just get them involved at the point you want to get them involved at. But ultimately, they'll be involved at some point, and you definitely want them. If you're a buyer and often a seller, a mortgage broker is going to be on that team. So I'm a big believer in mortgage brokers. They are. Some people go direct to their bank, which is a lot more restrictive. A mortgage broker, they work with all the banks. They shop around to get you the best deals. They can play one bank off against the other essentially to get you the best deal. And they're paid by the banks. So you don't have to pay your broker. So a broker is a really good person on your team, and a lawyer. And depending on what you're doing, if you're looking at a subdivision, you're going to need a surveyor. If you're going to be doing a renovation, you probably want to be getting a builder in to look at how much it's going to cost. You're going to want to as a buyer, getting a building inspection regardless. unless you're a builder yourself, you don't know really what you're looking at, do you? You know, you're not going to be climbing up on the roof or going under the house looking at foundations, all that stuff you can't see. So you want to build it. You want to be getting it checked out.
And so, just in terms of a timeline, what stage do these different people? So buyers, they should talk to this person at this point based on this circumstance, and at this point, blah blah blah. And then a seller, you bring the lawyer in here or there or mortgage broker. Like, what sort of the?
Yeah, but the seller's often selling and buying at the same time, so they still want to get their bank involved or their broker as well to go, okay, well, we're looking to sell for X, we want to buy for Y. How's our finances? Because the last thing you want to do is sell and go, great, we're sold, and now, oh, shit, we can't buy because we can't afford the next one. So you want to get your broker involved at the early stage. Same with the lawyer. We're looking to sell. This is what our plan is. So to let them know what you're doing, so they can. The selling side, the lawyer, apart from looking at the sale agreement, might not be doing a whole lot at that front end. But you do want to get them involved.
Cool, done.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast. I just grilled you with 1,000 questions, but you did well. Thanks, Scott.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me along, Ryan. It's been fun.
Yeah, cool.